Will you pray with me? May the words of my lips and the meditation of all our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. So today I'm going to illustrate this talk with pictures, and so I hope they're helpful. They're just artwork of the events that happen in Genesis. Ignore them if they're not helpful. So the story that we heard from Genesis is a cracking one, but let's set it in context. So the first 11 chapters of the book of Genesis consist of myths. They are written in a mythical style, but from Genesis 12 the language changes quite abruptly and it becomes much more historical or biographical, and it's talking about Abraham and his family. And he was given a mission. He was told to leave Ur, which was in Mesopotamia, because God had a land for him and would make him into a great nation. And he had a wife, Sarah, or Sarah as it was originally, and she had a handmaiden, Hagar. The only problem with this sort of prophecy is that Sarah doesn't become pregnant for years and years and years, and she is aging. And so in desperation, she suggests that Abraham sleeps with Hagar to conceive a son. And this happens, and Hagar has a child that they call Ishmael. But God says that although Abraham should look after Ishmael, the son who will become the father of the promised nation is through Sarah. And eventually Sarah does miraculously have a child, Isaac, when they're both very old. However, Sarah is jealous of Hagar all of this time. And in one of the most shocking scenes of the Bible, Hagar and Ishmael are sent into the desert to almost certain death. Remember, this is Abraham's firstborn son. But fortunately for Hagar and Ishmael, they are rescued by an angel. So then we have today's story, and it does have some similarities. God tests Abraham. He sends him off on a 3-day hike, taking a donkey and 2 servants and some wood. And this is with the intention of sacrificing Isaac. He ties Isaac up and puts him on the wood and takes a knife to slit his throat. And at that moment, an angel comes and says, "No, stop!" And there is a ram caught in a thicket that is sacrificed instead of Isaac, and then they trek home. Once again, it seems that Abraham is prepared to sacrifice his son. And once again, an angel steps in and saves the day. Now, the traditional reading of this is that the first commandment is to love God, and to love God with all our heart and our soul and our mind and our strength. And there should be nothing that is so important to us that we would not give it up for God. And of course, Isaac is the longed for son. He's the fulfillment of all of Abraham's hopes and dreams. And it would be wrong for Abraham to love Isaac more than God. And so this must be tested. And Abraham passes with flying colours. There's another tradition, a Jewish tradition, and this has it that Isaac is in his 30s when this event happens. He's 37, in fact. And as Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born, Isaac would naturally be far stronger than his father. So if he was tied up, then he was a willing sacrifice. And this has similarities to Jesus being willing to go to the cross and the sense of sacrifice there. But another aspect of this Jewish tradition is interesting here. Now, if you look closely in the story in Genesis 22, it mentions that Abraham returns with the donkey and the 2 servants, but there is no mention of Isaac. At the beginning of Genesis 23, Sarah dies. So the very next chapter. And the Jewish tradition has it that Isaac runs off after this event where he almost gets sacrificed. And the shock of finding out what almost happened and the disappearance of her son kills Sarah. Isaac, incidentally, reappears in Genesis 24 and gets married, and the fulfillment of the promise made to Abraham starts to happen. But shall we go back and see this story from Sarah's viewpoint? It becomes problematic. Sarah has been frantic with worry. Abraham and Isaac have gone almost a week. Are they okay? Where are they? Abraham returns without Isaac, and Sarah wants to know what has happened. Well, says Abraham, God told me to sacrifice Isaac. What? And you didn't argue? Remember, Abraham is the biggest negotiator with God in the whole Bible. When God said he was going to destroy the towns of Sodom and Gomorrah in Genesis 18, Abraham goes to town negotiating. What if there are 50 righteous men in the towns? Okay, you would save the towns for 50. Okay, now, how about if there are 45 righteous men in the towns? He goes on and on, whittling God down. But on this occasion, when God tells him to sacrifice his son, he just agrees. What does Sarah make of that? And he went out to do it without any thought of talking to the boy's mother, who, if anything, was even fonder of Isaac than Abraham was, and even more in need of God's testing. It's clear, isn't it, that Abraham did not have a harmonious household. There was strife within it. His action to send Hagar away was shocking, and his willingness to sacrifice Isaac with no apparent thought as to the impact on Sarah was also shocking. And sometimes for me, I think the household that I came from was too damaged, that God was completely absent, and no good can come out of that place. Even today, I have nightmares about it all. And we might feel the same way about coronavirus, or the state of the Church of England, or the difficulties we face in this parish. But weirdly, this man Abraham becomes the father of nations. Israel through his son Isaac, and the Arab states through his son Ishmael. He became the father of 3 great religions, the religions of the book, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. And the message through all the mess, I believe, is that we need to love and trust God. However imperfect our situation is, however imperfect we are, ultimately that is the story here. Sarah didn't see this story unfold. There's a suggestion that she had difficulty believing and trusting in God. But for all his flaws, huge as they may be, Abraham did believe God. And in Romans it states that this was reckoned to him as righteousness. During these stressful and trying times, and as difficult as it is, and as flawed as we are, let us strive to believe and trust in God. And remember, there is a crack in everything. That is how the light gets in.